The sunrise hadn't even cracked the hangar's roofline when Brick froze at the sight of the wrong patch. On the quiet girl's arm, the morning wind pushed an 8-knot draft through the open bay, carrying the faint tang of jet fuel and cold metal. Ava Rourke didn't seem to notice the chill. She was already beneath the A-10’s snub-nosed front section, sleeves pushed up, tools neatly aligned beside the landing gear strut. The aircraft's tail number, 921, loomed overhead like a silent guardian while the GAU-8's massive drum rested open before her. Before we begin this mission, hit subscribe and ring the bell, because some stories of courage never made the headlines, but they deserve to be heard. Tell us where you're watching from and who's the hero in your family. Brick had walked this flight line for 20 years, and he trusted his eyes more than he trusted half the gauges on the instrument panels. One glance at the desert tan emblem stitched onto Ava's sleeve ruff faded unmistakably, and his breath stalled. The symbol was a whisper from another world, a rumor passed between veterans late at night. A ghost squadron off record, night flying, never confirmed. No junior maintainer should be wearing it. Ava rotated the cannon cluster, each barrel clicking as she ran the safing sequence by muscle memory. She didn't look up. She moved with a precision that wasn't normal for a tech only 18 months into the unit. Brick stepped closer, boots crunching over grit. She paused, just barely, a hitch in the wrist. Her shoulders stiffened before she resumed the rotation and lifted the borescope, guiding it into the first barrel with a surgeon's focus. "That patch," Brick said. Simple words, simple tone. The kind that still left no room to hide. Her jaw tightened. The scope trembled only for a heartbeat before she forced it steady. "It's just old gear." "Not that old," Brick muttered. The emblem was specific. An angular falcon wings folded back as if mid-dive. One of those units that didn't show up on rosters. "Where'd you get it?" Ava didn't answer. She peered into the barrel's dark spiral instead, as if the steel would swallow the question whole. She wasn't afraid of him. Brick knew fear. This was something else, a weight she carried like a second skin. He opened his mouth to push again, but a radio crackled from the tower above the hangar. "Ground. This is Tiger Ops, code yellow, on the range drone. All flightline personnel stand by for lockdown confirmation." Ava's head snapped up before anyone else reacted. Brick saw a treflex, sharp and instinctive, like a pilot catching a missile warning tone. Her eyes darted to the flightline exit, then to the sky. She calculated something silently, and it was too fast for a regular tech to track. Brick's stomach sank. He'd spent enough time around combat flyers to recognize the look. Ava set the borescope down and stripped her gloves off. "Is it coming this way?" she asked, voice low, already analyzing possibilities. "What's the last ping range?" "How would you know that?" Brick demanded. She didn't blink. "Just tell me he didn't get the chance." The second transmission came faster, tighter, strained. "Tiger Ops to all units. Drone has gone dark over Sector 4. All crews hold position until we verify flight path." The words echoed inside the hangar. Someone shouted from a nearby bay. Tools clattered. The APU of a jet whining to life somewhere down the line stirred a nervous ripple across the concrete. Ava's breathing went thin. Not panic calculation. "Sector 4 lines up with the training corridor," she murmured. "If the drone drifted, the crosswinds at dawn push hard from the north. 8 to 10 knots. She pointed, without thinking, toward the horizon, meaning it's nudging toward. "Toward us," Brick finished. She froze. He saw it then, fully. The flicker of fear behind her eyes. Not fear of danger. fear of being seen too clearly. "Look," Brick said more gently, "you don't have to." But she stepped toward the hangar mouth, scanning the sky with disciplined sweeps. Brick recognized the stance. Knees bent, weight forward, eyes locked on altitude lines only pilots ever tracked. It was wrong. It was impossible. And yet it was right in front of him, Rourke, he said. "What exactly did you do before this assignment?" She swallowed hard. "Maintenance," she said quietly. He shook his head. "Try again." Silence spread between them, heavy and taut, wrapped in all the unasked questions Brick had carried since he first saw her move around an aircraft too familiar, too intimate, like the plane was an old friend she hadn't meant to see again. A distant alarm sounded, signaling the first stage of lockdown. Ava flinched, but she didn't retreat. Her gaze held steady on the eastern corridor, where sunlight finally cracked over the desert, painting the sky in thin gold slices. She stood as if waiting for something to emerge from the glare. "You need to get clear," Brick said. "If that drone comes in low, it won't," Ava muttered. "The drift vector isn't right. It's missing the rotation offset. If they lost telemetry, it'll circle, not dive." "Techs don't talk like that," Brick whispered. She said nothing. Footsteps pounded toward them, other maintainers, rushing to secure equipment and get indoors. Brick watched Ava instead. Her hands, still bare, were flexing like a pilot, checking grip before throttle. Her shoulders rose and fell slowly, fighting to stay composed. "Rourke," Brick said, softer now. "You can trust me." "No," she answered. "I really can't." The words held a lifetime behind them. He stepped closer, close enough to see the fine dust rubbed into the threads of the patch. Desert dust, not local. Something she hadn't meant to keep wearing, or maybe hadn't meant to reveal at all. "You've seen things," Brick said. "Real things." Ava's eyes flicked toward him, and for a heartbeat he saw the truth beneath every careful, quiet day she'd worked this hangar. She wasn't hiding fear. She was hiding history. Before he could press further, the radio cut in again, sharper. "Tiger Ops 2, flight line, drone path confirmed. Nitrogen monocan risk, stand down, lockdown, canceled. All crews resume normal operations." The tension broke across the hangar as voices rose in relief. But Ava didn't move. She stood still, exhaling slowly, grounding herself as if coming down from a far steeper dive. Brick approached her. "You reacted faster than half the pilots I've known." She didn't answer. "You owe me an explanation," he said. She hesitated, then picked up her gloves again, sliding them on with mechanical precision. "No," she murmured. "I owe you good work. That's all." But Brick knew better. He had seen her flinch at the drone alert with the instincts of someone who had once lived by threat vectors and telemetry loss, and the patchy couldn't forget the patch. As Ava returned to the GAU-8, her movements were steady again. But Brick could feel the tremor beneath them like a hidden engine rumble waiting to surge. Something was coming, and she knew it. And by the way she kept her back turned, she knew he knew it too. He didn't say another word, but he walked away certain of one thing. The quiet girl on the dawn shift wasn't who she claimed to be, and the truth would come roaring out long before anyone was ready. What Brick didn't realize yet was that the next person to notice the patch would not ask questions instead. They would pull Ava straight into the shadows she had fought so hard to leave behind. Ava sat under the harsh intel room lights, the classified past she'd buried flickering back to life in Cypher's cold gaze. The room felt smaller than it was, walls lined with map displays and humming processors, all of it too bright, too sharp, too close. She kept her hands folded in her lap, knuckles pale, shoulders tight, trying to look like a tech caught in routine questioning instead of a ghost dragged back into daylight. Cypher stood opposite her, arms locked behind his back. Brick lingered by the door, jaw clenched, the guilt of reporting her hovering like a shadow. Ava didn't look at him. Couldn't. His presence made the memory of Dontha Patch, the freeze in his eyes, the slip in her own control flare inside her chest again. Cypher took a step forward. "Explain where you got that patch, Technician Holt." She swallowed hard. "It's a souvenir. Wrong place, wrong trade shop. Someone passed it to me. I didn't know what it meant." Cypher's eyebrows lifted. "Incorrect. That emblem hasn't circulated. It's never been issued. It's never been acknowledged." He slid a tablet onto the table. A blurry image filled the screen her sleeve, the desert tan insignia, the mark of something she once flew for but was never allowed to name. "This," he said, tapping it, "shouldn't exist on any base. So tell me why you have it." Brick shifted, as though wanting to intervene but unsure how. Ava didn't move. Her breath trembled, just once, and Cypher saw it. "You are not in trouble," he said, though his voice carried the chill of someone who expected a lie. "But this patch is tied to a detachment rumored to operate without official tasking, a Night Sea AS element, a unit that, according to every record we have, never existed." Her pulse hammered against the inside of her throat. The words brought back sand, darkness, silhouettes of stranded teams pinned down against dune ridges, her own voice calling corrections in the night. She blinked it away. "Look," she murmured, "it doesn't matter. It's old history." "History leaves traces," Cypher said softly. "Yours seem unusual." Before she could answer, a voice crackled from the speakers overhead, sharp enough to cut through the tension. "Ground to ops. Be advised. Range control reports abnormal telemetry on grid Eco 7 to Golf 2. Cypher frowned and tapped his wrist com. "Ops. Specify abnormal telemetry." The reply came back strained. "Range instructor reports an unspecified F-jet declared hydraulic B failure. Pilot call sign vapor. Mayday call transmitted." Ava's head rose. Brick stepped away from the wall, instincts overriding any protocol. The intel room shifted instantly from interrogation space to crisis node map screens, brightened to show the range's desert expanse, grid squares pulsing red from Eco 7 to Golf 2. Printer chatter began, layering with static from open channels. The low light turned the figures in the room into silhouettes. Cypher looked to Brick. "Get Hale." Brick sprinted out the door. Ava stared at the map. Vapor's beacon drifted along a shaky vector altitude, dropping. She recognized the Turan the rolling flats, the escarpment to the east, the wind shear that cut across the valley with unpredictable bursts. 11, maybe 12 seconds of data was enough for her to judge the danger. Fuel burn-off looked uneven. The jet was heavier on the right tank, pulling it subtly toward a slope that would ruin any forced landing. Cypher noticed her expression. "Something you want to say, Technician?" She shook her head, but her eyes didn't move from the screen. Brick returned with Hal the tall instructor, with a quiet voice and reputation for keeping his cool when others cracked. But the moment he walked in and saw Ava sitting there, something shifted. Recognition rippled across his face, so subtle others might have missed it. Ava didn't. Cypher gave a quick brief. "She's being questioned for possession of restricted insignia, but right now we have an aircraft losing hydraulics over the range." Hale's focus swung from Cypher to the screen, then to Ava. A tiny flicker of memory seemed to surface Dusty Night. Incoming fire, the thunder roll of a GAU-8 somewhere above him. The unidentified angel, who never gave her name but saved his unit anyway. He whispered, almost to himself, "It was you." Ava froze. Cypher's gaze snapped to him. "Explain that." But Hale didn't. Instead, he stepped beside the map table. "When my team was pinned down 2 years ago, a CAS bird with no call sign pulled us out. Night run, 0 moon. Pilot never checked in, never claimed credit. I remember the cadence of her corrections. Calm, exact," he pointed at Ava. "That was her." A silence thick enough to feel settled over the room. Cypher exhaled sharply, half disbelief, half recalibration. "Right now, we don't have time for myth-building," as if punctuating the point. A new call burst across the room. Vapor to range control, losing nose authority, controls sluggishness. Quest vectors. Ava leaned closer before she realized she'd moved. "He's fighting the crosswinds wrong. He'll drift into Golf 2's rocks." Cypher glanced over. "Repeat that." "Wind shear from the north. If he doesn't angle at least 4 degrees south, he'll clip the ridge." Hale checked the display. "She's right." Another call crackled through. "Mayday no pitch authority. Any assist appreciated." Hale's voice dropped. "Cypher, she needs on the monitoring team." "She's a technician," Cypher argued. But doubt edged his tone. "No," Hale said. "She's Halo." The name hit Ava like a fist, her old call sign, buried with a past she'd sworn off. But Vapor's altitude was falling fast. "Minutes left," Cypher exhaled. "Fine, Holt." On station, Ava stepped to the table, slipping on a headset as overlapping voices and static flooded in. Instinct took over. "Range control, advise Vapor. Correct 4 degrees south, retrim manually." 40 seconds before terrain becomes decisive, her commands flowed terrain offsets, drift compensation, fuel burn. The ops team shifted to her rhythm without hesitation. Hale watched with knowing pride, Brick with dawning respect, Cypher with recalculating eyes, and Ava felt Halo rising again not as a ghost, but as the only one who could keep Vapor alive. Someone like Halo. And when Vapor's desperate voice cracked across the channel again, she answered without hesitation, already leading him toward the narrow thread of survival. But she had no idea the next decision would send her back into the cockpit she swore she'd never touch again. The moment the controller said the standby A-10 was the only aircraft in range. The room's eyes locked on Ava. The ops center felt suspended between heartbeats. Every map screen washed in dusk-orange glare as the desert outside dimmed into evening. Vapor's beacon drifted lower and slower across Grid Eco 7 to Golf 2, altitude bleeding away with every second. Ava stood in the middle of it, headset still around her neck from guiding his last desperate corrections, her pulse tightening like a cinched harness strap. Cypher was the first to speak. The A-10 in Bay 3, tail 1190. "That's your old bird, isn't it?" Ava didn't answer immediately. She felt Hale's gaze on her steady, certain, quietly urging her toward a truth she wasn't sure she was ready to claim. Brick hovered behind him, arms crossed, jaw set, the weight of earlier doubts still etched across his face. "She's the only airframe close enough," Hale said. "Vapor won't stay airborne much longer." A crackled transmission confirmed it. "Vapor to ops. I'm at minimum control. Unable to hold altitude? Request any assist you can give." Ava's chest tightened. She knew what that tone meant, the edge of panic. The pilot counting down the moments until gravity made the decision for him. Cypher turned to her. "Suit up. I'm not flight status," she replied, voice low, but even. "You are now," Hale said, "because that jet will respond to you better than to anyone else." "You know every bolt of her," Brick added, quieter but firm, "and he'll listen to you. He already has." Ava glanced at the map once more. Vapor's beacon wavered, dropped another 100 feet, then another. She exhaled slowly, a breath that carried months of hiding and years of memories she'd tried to bury. When she looked up, her eyes held a resolve she hadn't worn in a long time. "Prep 1190, she said. "I'll take her up." They didn't cheer, they didn't congratulate. They just moved fast and efficient, clearing a path as Ava walked out of the ops center and into the cooling desert wind, the sky fading into the deep indigo of early night. The A-10 waited in Bay 3 panels, still open from maintenance checks. The airframe looked tired but loyal, the way only an A-10 could built to survive what should have destroyed it. Ava's hand brushed the fuselage, tracing worn paint, old scratches, the faint ghost of a call sign once stenciled beneath the cockpit. "Hala," she climbed the ladder and slid into the seat, the cockpit sealing her in as the world outside fell silent. The harness clicked tight. Her hands moved with instinct, poo spinning up, engines stabilizing, lights shifting amber to green. It felt like coming home. Halo 1 to ops, systems online. "Ready for taxi. Cleared," Cypher answered. "Vapors losing altitude fast." Ava rolled the A-10 onto the taxiway. Cruz stepped back, watching as she powered forward and lifted into the desert dusk. At 2,000 feet at GL, she locked onto Vapor's fading beacon. "Vapor, I'm en route." 40 seconds. His voice cracked controls. Nearly dead. Radar lit with erratic pings. A malfunctioning range drone drifted toward Vapor's path. "Not today," she muttered, diving into an intercept. She placed her warthog between the drone and the failing jet. When it veered again, she fired a short burst into empty sand, the GAU-8's roar startling the drone's sensors and shoving it off course. Runway 21 appeared ahead. "Vapor, match my descent. Stay with me, I'm trying." She guided him down until his wheels hit, skidding but holding. Ava landed moments later. Vapor climbed out, shaking, and saluted her with a grateful, trembling nod. Brick followed this time with full respect. Ava returned the gesture, Halo reborn. Halo wasn't gone. She had never been gone, and now finally she wasn't hiding. In the quiet that followed, Ava felt the sky calling again, hinting that her next mission was already waiting beyond the horizon.